Hey, this is Galen Herbstick Cortina with Buff Your Finances, and today we're going to talk about the emergency fund and why it's important for streamers. So, the emergency fund is a stockpile of cash that you have that you don't use for paying your month to month bills. It's there in case of an emergency. I've also called it the oh shit fund. Like if something makes you go, oh shit, and you need something to cover it, that's what it's there for. So, this is something that you should put aside in a separate bank account, one that you don't use for paying your routine bills. And it should be something that is sufficient to cover your needs. So, what are your needs? This depends really heavily both on you and your streaming situation. So, for people who have a stable job outside of streaming and that's the main source of their income, and then streaming's a side thing, I usually recommend about 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses that you can put aside. Those expenses are what you need to continue living as you are, that you actually require to have done. So this is things like rent or mortgage payments, food, insurance, just general I am a human, I need some minor form of entertainment, all those kinds of things where if you were out of a job, you would still have to be paying them. Student loan payments is another common one. Now, if you are relying on streaming as your sole or main source of income, it's actually important to have a bigger emergency fund, usually 6 months to a year's worth of those expenses. And the reason for that is because, well, it's a little bit less stable and it's all dependent on you. If you're in a job and you get sick or injured, often there are ways that you can still have some income coming in during that period. But if you're a streamer and you're sick and you aren't able to be live, then you aren't earning income in the same way. So even though streaming can be a very lucrative and fulfilling career, it does carry a little bit more risk with it. Now, to be fair, that's the same risk that all business owners share. So for instance, because I have my own business, I should have a bit more in my emergency fund. We're offset a bit by the fact that my wife is an employee, so we fall somewhere in the middle of that range. But anyways, that's what you need to know about the emergency fund. It's really important that you have it as a streamer. I would recommend first doing the math on what are your expenses, and after that, figuring out exactly how much you need to have aside, and then work up to it. This isn't something that you're like, oh yeah, I've just got this big stockpile of cash sitting around and I'm going to do it today. This is more like build up over time. Save a couple $100 a month if you can swing it. I know that's a lot, but towards building up this amount, so that if something does go wrong, you have an unexpected medical expense, you have to take some time off, those kinds of things, you can cover it and you aren't having to put everything on credit cards or take out other loans. All right, this is Galen Herbstick Cortina with Buff Your Finances, and this was the Emergency Fund.